So in this example, the poll by the Denton Record Chronicle gives us some information. So we need to check these conditions, and then we'll go ahead and make our confidence interval. Okay, a 95% confidence interval. So the first thing we do is it independent? Does it seem reasonable? So this one here, does it seem reasonable? Yes, it's reasonable since it was random. One person's vote shouldn't affect another's. Okay? So you just have to say something about it. You can't just sit there and ignore saying that. Okay? So I'm going to change colors for the random sampling. We already talked about random sampling here, the fact that it was random. So I would put that in this part right here as well. Okay? So we got that as part of it. Since it was random, one person's vote shouldn't affect another's. Okay? We're going to check the 10% condition. It says there was n equals 330. So it's reasonable, or instead of saying reasonable, how about saying the condition is met since there are greater than 3,300 voters in Denton. Okay, so we've met all these three. Okay, success, failures. Okay, it says finding 144. So our probability of success based on our sample is 100, or what we want in our sample, 144 out of 330. So when I do that on the calculator, I get, just doing that right now, 140 divided by 330 is 0.42. And that's repeating, so I'll just say 0.424. So what's my success? Well, I'm going to do I'll change colors again. My success here is n times p. Is it greater than or equal to 10? And then n times q is greater than or equal to 10. I think it's going to be fine here, but let's just do it here. So I'm going to get 330 times 0.42 equals times 330, which is 140, which is greater than or equal to 10. So I can check off success. And then failure, if I subtract that from 140 from 330, that leaves me 190 is greater than 10, so my failure conditions are met. So we've got a big enough sample that we can use a normal model. So now we can go ahead. I'm going to the next screen and make the rest of it. Okay, so here I just went back to the original slide. We've got some information here that we've got. We've got the success on our sample, and we've got this here. Remember how I got the success on the sample? 140 divided by 330, so that's the approximate number. And so what we want is to get the margin of error. So we know that this is 0.424, okay? And then what's the z, the critical z? What's the critical z? That's what we need to know. Well, it says a 95% confidence interval. 95% confidence interval. So that would mean we're looking at like this. We want our area here to be 0.95. So I need negative z star and positive z star. Okay? So really what I want is this tail here if I just color it in here really quickly, this part right here is going to be, these two parts have to be 5%. So I'm going to make this 0.025 and this 0.025. Okay, well, how do I get that? Well, I'm going to get inverse normal 0.025, and that will give me the negative z-score. So if I do that on my calculator, .025 is negative 1.96. That's the z. That's my z star. Okay, so I'm going to write that in here. Negative 1.96. Okay, so I think I have everything. All I have to do is, let me erase something that's not clear here, so I'll make that a 6 here. So really what we have to do now is just plug and chug, and we've got our thing here. Some of you might have used 2 and negative 2, and that would have been fine for that score. I'm just being a little bit more precise, so I'm going to put that in here. I'm going to get 0.424 plus or minus 1.96 times the square root of 0.424, 1 minus 0.424, all over 330. So we'll get that here in a second. So I did this calculation here, and I get 0.424 plus or minus 0.053, and so if I write that out, so there's my confidence interval, and we've got to interpret it, okay, at the 95% confidence level. So remember, we don't know the real answer for the proportion. We don't know what percent are going to vote for the Denton ISD school bond. So they did a poll, and this is what they came up with. So what we can say is we are 95% confident that the true proportion of voters who will support the DISD bond is between 37.1% and 47.7% of voters. That would be the interpretation of it. You can't just write this like, if you just write it like this, you will only get partial credit. Okay? So we need to write something that interprets it, and we're 95% confident that we have the true proportion is somewhere between 37 and 48%.